Shorter spectrum, along with a failure of equipment, puts the top-rated evening news show down for a night, which means that top-rated news show will have to come back again to tell us what's going on between the last 2 days and over the weekend as well. But we'll be talking a bit about that, what happened there, and what happens next. In other news, a Missouri man with a good traditional white name, great for a white supremacist, crashes a car, or truck rather, into the White House barrier. Apparently he wanted to seize power and threaten the president, but we'll be talking about that, what this means, and a little bit more of that outsourcing of white supremacy, so we'll go over some of that. Ron DeSantis kind of makes his announcement. He announces that he's going to announce. And he's going to sit down with Elon Musk and make the official announcement. So we'll be talking about what that means, why he's screwing around, and what this is going to do for the presidential race. And Kevin McCarthy tells House Republicans that he's nowhere near the debt ceiling deal. And, well, the stocks do what it is that they're going to do. It is going to be all of this and more, especially since we have 2 days worth of shows. I was the one flying the balloons. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. We got some of that aquatic ambience sitting here waiting here. This was, well, I've got to come back out and say I admitted defeat last night. This was not something that I wanted to do. In fact, I would like this episode to be titled episode number 627 right now, but that was not in the cards last night. I set up and I started live stream twice last night, and it did nothing but buffer either time, which is... what I don't understand is, like, I kept running Ookla speed test, and my upload was fine. Like, I was running the same kind of upload speeds as I run now with the new equipment here. I've got new gear now, new modem, new router. They're in separate pieces right now, so they're not the same one unit anymore. It's a temporary. I got them from Spectrum, obviously. I will be going back and getting some new equipment coming up here in the next week. I will be returning this to Spectrum because I don't like using their equipment. Full stop. But we are back up and running. And actually, it looks like we're running even a higher bandwidth than before, too. So there's that. But, I mean, we can sit down here and discuss what's happening over here. Or we can talk about what's happening in the news today, which there is quite a bit. And I mean, we've got stuff left over from the weekend, too, so we got to get right down into it over here on Contemporary. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Clown World Chronicles, and more, as we come together to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. It's time to stop getting your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your houses, and it's time to discuss the news, number one, where you have an open forum where you can sit back and discuss the events of the day with the host and the other people watching with you, and number two, and the more important part, people who have had to make the same decisions as you do. So stop getting your news from from the squares and start getting your news from the cool people over here. And with that, let's get into it and let's get started. Get the live chat up here while we're setting the news scene up. And we're going to start with finance as we usually do, because I've actually got an extra finance article, not just on the stocks, but what's happening on the treasury yield as we get down to that debt ceiling here. Let's get the live chats all up here so I can see what you guys are doing. And we do check in with the live chat as we go, so if you guys have something to discuss, let me know and we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Not spend a lot of time because we've got a lot of stuff on there, but we do take comments. And I have no camera on because I did because I was eating dinner while I was doing. I did a StarCraft 2, just one mission on StarCraft 2 late last night, and I turned the camera off because I was eating a pork loin while I was doing it. So, all right, let's get started. Let's get the live chat up here. Looks like we got some people coming on here. Yeah, Mr. Scott is over here. Arbolt came over. Woo, it's working today. What happened? It just kept buffering. That's what happened. Like, it did not stop buffering. And then Mr. Scott has moved over to the Rumble side, which is working there as well. There was a decent solar CME yesterday. And then that was a link to NASCOM, so I'll look at that. I'm actually gonna, because it's you, I'm gonna put this over here. I'm not gonna bring it up, but apparently, yeah, we had some pretty good sized solar radiation. I don't think that's what was causing anything. My old modem was DOCSIS 3.0, which Seawall tried to explain that to me the other night, and it didn't work because it kind of went in one ear and out the other. But it was DOCSIS 3.0, and apparently if you try to run on DOCSIS 3.0 with the new internet infrastructure, and especially with 100 megabit per second modem, I am up to 300 megabits per second in here, you'll burn out equipment very quickly, is I guess what happened. Let's see. Do you keep an eye on the Soho Solar Observer satellite? No, but I'll try it. Mogwai's here. Oh my god, the stream is working. It's a miracle. The Sun voted for Biden. It's against J. Edgar 101. Yes, they did. All right, let's get down. Let's look at the Dow. Yeah, we got a lot to cover here today just because we did, we weren't here yesterday. I was here. The funny thing is, and I keep getting distracted before we get started, but the funniest part of this is I did the entire cold open, and then I went over and looked at the monitors and saw that it was still showing the stream starting soon on everything over on Rumble, on YouTube, on Twitch, which means that my cold open never even got out there. So, and also, stupid me, forgot to hit the record button beginning. So I am going to start uploading to Spotify again. I think YouTube is done where it's done doing that thing where it spent 48 hours trying to buffer everything. But yeah, I'm going to start downloading and getting a sound file onto here. I've got the technology to go back and change it into an audio file right away and put it up on Spotify as fast as I can. For those of you who want to go back and share it out, for people who are listening in the car, etc. That's going to be coming up in the near future. Oh, and one other announcement while we're still sitting here looking at the Dow is I'm going to attempt to start having guests once a month, maybe every other week or so. Just something to spice everything up. It's not going to be an all the time thing, but I'm going to start to try to bring some other people in because there are some good voices that I want to promote. I know that Britt is probably going to be the first one in here. I got to sit down and get in contact with her to see when it is that we can sit down and work together. But yeah, there's going to be guests coming up in the near future. Wherever. Like if you've got recommendations and you can get us in contact where we're talking to each other. I'll work with a lot of people, and I'll hear a lot of people out, too. So that is a good question, Grant. Thank you. All right, let's get into the Dow. The Dow is at 33,055.51. That is down another 231.07 points, or another 0.2%. And it was down yesterday, too, by the way. So we're going on to that slide. I don't think we're going to hit the 30,000, but I know that we're going to start getting some panic because, guys, there's 8 days left in this month. 7, technically. And we still don't have a debt ceiling deal. So Janet Yellen keeps telling us it's going to be June 1st. We've actually got an article in here discussing when it's going to be, but we'll be talking about that later on. Looking in at your Bitcoin, which did the opposite today, actually spent the day up after a significant spike. It started to falter a little bit after the spike upwards, but still ending up 335 US dollars and 20 US cents, 1.25% to 27,189 US dollars and 90 US cents on the day for Bitcoin. Looking at your gas prices, I will admit where I was wrong. Over the weekend, going into Friday, it looked like everything had jumped up to 350, and I said, top off because it's probably going to start going up. Well, it came back down again over the weekend. Memorial Day in focus, I think they're going to try to hold things down so people go on vacation and try to stimulate the economy some, but we are at 340 on the west side, 340 on the east side, with an outlier 326 at a quick trip on the east side of Madison. Your gas prices may vary. Go check your local listings to see where your gas prices are, but this is a trend line to see what it is that's happening in one particular market and has been happening over 3 years. Let's grab our finance article of the day. Coming to us from CNBC, S&P 500 closes 1% lower Tuesday as debt ceiling talks drag on in Washington. From Samantha Subin and Alex Herring. Yeah, that government shutdown. It's not a government shutdown, actually. They won't be doing a shutdown per se. They've got the funds to keep going. It's the fact that they'll stop being able to pay the bills, which means that Treasury bonds will be practically worthless. Because who's going to buy one if they don't know if they're going to get paid or not? And that is one of the big funding arms of the government. So, yeah, there's a lot to talk about with this. Stocks fell on Tuesday as ongoing debt ceiling discussions appear to yield little progress. The S&P dropped 1.12% to settle at 41.4558, while the Nasdaq pulled back to 1.25% to close at 12,560.25. The Dow lost 231.07 points, or 0.2% to finish at 33,055.51. Some traders interpreted the lack of any major update on negotiations as a sign that lawmakers perhaps are struggling to progress as hoped. Investors have been closely eyeing debt limit negotiations in Washington, hoping for more certainty as the so-called June 1st X-date expected by Treasury Secretary Yellen fast approaches. Some Republicans on Tuesday questioned the accuracy of this projected default date. I have that article on the stack. On Monday, Kevin McCarthy and President Biden met at the White House to discuss what the House Speaker described as a productive and professional, although the hour-long talk concluded without a resolution. We're sending a very negative signal about our ability to run our economy, let alone be an anchor for the rest of the world, Mohammed El-Arian said on CNBC's Squawk Box on Tuesday. And the market so far has actually dealt with it very well. The Alliance chief economic advisor says he's very impressed by the recent market stability. El-Arian added that he views the S&P 500 as a fairly priced despite the recent headwind and uncertainty surrounding the Federal Reserve's next rate move. So, yeah, they're even talking about possibly jumping that back up 0.25%, but nobody wants to talk about that in finance because we're too busy wondering whether or not the debt ceiling is going to take a hit. We'll see what happens with this. I want to talk a touch about Treasury yields, which is always an interesting one because that's the government coming out here and trying to raise the rate to get people to buy stuff to fund the government for longer so they can offset some of the taxes. From MarketWatch, debt ceiling angst sends Treasury bill yields towards 6%. From Vivian Lu Chen. Continued uncertainty about whether a debt ceiling resolution can come together fast enough to avoid a government default pushed yields on the Treasury bills maturing between early and mid-June towards 6% on Tuesday. The yield on Treasury bills maturing on June 6 touched that level before settling at 5.997% according to Bloomberg data. And we were saying that 4% was ridiculous. Meanwhile, the rate on the T-bill maturing June 8th was at 5.905% as of Tuesday afternoon. In addition, the one-year T-bill issued on June 2022, which matures on June 15th, was yielding 6.141%. Though analysts said that was likely being impacted by a government auction on Tuesday, that 6.141% yield is currently the highest of any government obligation maturing within 2 weeks, after the so-called X-date of June 1st, when Treasury Secretary Yellen said the government might be unable to pay all of its bills if no action is taken on the debt ceiling. The Treasury bill market is where debt ceiling angst has played out the most on Tuesday, brought wild trading as investors question whether the government will be forced to miss payments after June 1st. At the moment, the T-bill market is in a state of dislocation, one in which yields range from as little as 2.924% on the government obligation maturing on May 30th to as high as 6.1% on the one-year bill maturing on June 15th. The higher the yield on a Treasury obligation, the more investors are demanding to be compensated for the risk of holding that bill. Yields are also rising when investors are selling off or staying away from the underlying maturity. Tuesday's move suggests investors and traders are factoring in at least some risk that the government could cross the X date without a debt ceiling resolution. So, this is big on the investment market. I would laugh if we went into a position where nobody went out and bought bonds anymore. I would laugh. I really would. But we've still got 7 more days. Let's look in at the layoffs report. From CNN, Disney begins third rounds of expected layoffs, cutting more than 2,500 additional jobs, sources say. From Leon Riley and John Pasantino. A third wave of expected layoffs is underway at Disney. Employees impacted by the cuts are being notified this week. A source familiar with the situation told CNN. Happiest place on earth right there, guys. More than 2,500 staff are expected to lose their jobs across the latest wave of layoffs, the source said, in what is anticipated to be the latest significant round of cuts that were previously announced by Disney CEO Bob Iger. It was not immediately known which divisions would be impacted by the latest round of cuts. A Disney spokesperson declined to comment. The first 2 waves took place in March and April, eliminating roughly 4,000 jobs, including at ESPN, Disney's entertainment division, Disney Parks, and its experience and product division. In February, Iger announced the media giant would axe roughly 7,000 employees from its global workforce in 3 waves before the start of the summer, an undertaking aimed at saving $5.5 billion in costs. The Labor Department cuts make 30% of this figure, with another 50% coming from marketing operations and 20% from decreased spending on technology, procurement, and other expenses, the company said. You know what would save you a lot of money, or net you a lot of money, I would think? Sell Lucasfilms. That's right, sell Lucasfilms. Sell the Star Wars franchise. Get rid of it. Let Turner buy it up and make another fantastic cartoon out of it. I'm sure a lot of Star Wars fans are looking for that. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm sure a lot of Star Wars fans are looking for that. But we'll see what happens to that. Let's see. Mr. Scott says, I predict a graviton particle beam bounced off the main deflector disc style. Just make something up shenanigans. I got all the way through that before I realized that was a make something up shenanigan. Grant says the real question is how much spending is going to go up. We'll see. We'll be talking about the negotiations there in just a bit. Too bad inflation is like 20% at least. Yeah, it is. So that is where we are at as far as the layoffs report. We will see who gets laid off tomorrow. We've got to talk about what happened in DC today to start with. So NBC News, and I didn't know what was going on with this at all. Oh, guy says, I'm sorry the milkmaid milking that cash cow depends on Lucasfilms. I'm laughing as we talk about something horrific that happened in DC. Well, typically when something horrific happens in DC, I'm laughing anyway, but still. I found out about this from a meme from Arvold, who has already called what's happening here into question. So we'll talk about what the mainstream media is telling us and some of the questions that are had about this. But our top story today, 19-year-old arrested on multiple charges after crashing into barriers near the White House. The suspect allegedly made threatening statements about the White House at the scene. A law enforcement official told NBC News a Nazi flag was seized by authorities at the scene. Why? Because of course it was. From Patrick Smith and Kristen Welker. The 19-year-old Missouri man accused of driving a truck into barriers near the White House made incriminating statements that indicated to investigators that he was seeking to harm the president, or that he glows in the dark, officials said on Tuesday. Here we are with that very, very traditional Christian white name. Are you ready? The driver was Sai Varshith Kandula of Chesterfield. U.S. Park Police said on Tuesday morning. What a white supremacist. Thank you, Arvold. The charges against Kandula for allegedly threatening to kill, kidnap, inflict harm on a president, vice president, or family member stem from statements he made to multiple law enforcement agencies, according to the Secret Service representative. President Biden was in the White House when the truck crashed outside. President's press secretary, Token Diversity Hire, said on Tuesday he had met with Speaker McCarthy on Monday night to discuss the debt limit. But it wasn't clear if Biden was informed of the incident as it unfolded. Well, he probably was. He just probably doesn't remember it. No, Arvold. That's wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Scott, that's wrong. Basically, everyone on the left has not threatened Trump because, remember, there's a different set of rules for left. There's a different set of rules for people like Kathy Griffin. That's just exercising your free speech. Same thing with Madonna. Threatening to blow... You know what? I'm probably not going to say that out loud on YouTube with a Democrat in the White House. Never mind. Let's not go down that road. Because that'll be the part that Media Matters clips. Yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm glad I caught myself in time. Let's see. The Secret Service and Park Police briefed him on Tuesday morning, according to Jean Pierre. Can you imagine what that conversation was like? Yes, Mr. President. There's been an attack on the White House. Somebody drove a truck, a U-Haul truck, towards one of the barriers. Huh? Is Barack okay? Was he there? Oh boy, I remember Barack. He is a great guy. Sir, this is the White House you are currently in right now. What? I thought I was in my vacation home in Delaware. Where's Bo, man? The suspect was interviewed by Secret Service investigators on Monday night, the agency representative said, during an investigation that also involves U.S. States Park Police, the FBI, the U.S. Capitol Police. The FBI, you say? Kandula was further charged with assault with a dangerous weapon. Truck of peace. That's not a dangerous weapon. That is a truck of peace. Reckless operation of a motor vehicle and trespass. What a white supremacist. This is... Authorities say the preliminary investigation indicates Kandula intentionally crashed into the bollards outside Lafayette Park. A Nazi flag was seized by authorities at the scene of the incident. A Nazi flag, you don't say? A law enforcement official told NBC News that the suspect made threatening statements about the White House at the scene but was quickly detained. The truck did not contain weapons or explosives, the official said without providing further details. Okay. Let me see if I can get this straight. Let me see if I can figure this out straight. So, a Nazi rented a U-Haul truck, got past every Secret Service and Capitol Guard somehow and was able to crash it into the bollards. But it was empty. The only thing that was in the truck was a Nazi flag. There were no weapons. There were no explosives. There was nothing heavy to carry it further on momentum. There's just a Nazi flag. And nothing else. And you expect me to buy this? As for their reaction, the official said, "I don't think there's any place for a Nazi flag," or the statements that he made. Well, I guess the big question is was he already off the record when he looked back at his handler and said, "You think they bought it?" The white U-Haul box truck crashed into the barriers on the north side of Lafayette Square, a few hundred feet from the White House, just before 10 p.m. Eastern Time. A bystander appeared to capture on his cell phone the moment when the 26-foot U-Haul truck jumped a curb but couldn't fit through barriers set on the sidewalk. So that was he had a pretty good-sized truck. Medium-duty full frame. Gas engine, because it's U-Haul, obviously. But, and again, I need you to explain to me what this person's plan was after this. This is the hardest part when they try to bullshit off like this. It was an insurrection. They were going to try to take over the government. With their fists? Against the National Guard that has actual select fire assault rifles? He was threatening the president. Okay, again, what exactly was he planning on doing? Because there's no explosives, there's no weapons. It's common knowledge that there's Secret Service crawling through that facility. I've seen a Secret Service agent. I'm a pretty stout guy, but there is no way in hell I would ever want to stand toe-to-toe with one of those guys with the earpiece and the sunglasses. Not in a million years. I might try to outdrive one once, but toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye, no thank you. Let's see, Grant says, the demand for white supremacy has far outstripped the supply. Even the white supremacists are having their jobs taken by immigrants. Or the feds get a diversity mandate, which applies even to their false flag operations. They had someone try to break into the White House shortly after January 6th. They tried to blame it on Trump supporters. It turned out to be a black supremacist. I remember that, crashed his car on the barriers. I do remember that. That was they were setting it up to be a Youngkin rally, and it was all Northam supporters, and then that one girl, who was actually pretty good looking in the crowd, had to go and completely delete her Facebook. And everything. Yes, I do remember that. So, this is what they expect us to buy, by the way. Let's see. Some more details on this from ABC News. Man who wanted to seize power struck White House barrier with truck. Law enforcement says. The man was charged with 5 counts, including assault with a dangerous weapon from Pierre Thomas, Luke Barr, Beatrice Peterson, Lauren Minore, and Kevin Shalvey. Okay, so it wasn't completely empty, it looks like. Let's just have a glance at the video here. I don't want to listen to Michael Strahan speak. Yeah, no. You don't have me believing this for a second. This guy didn't even attempt. I cannot. There are a lot of lines that I can't cross talking about this. But I can say this, if that guy wanted to get in there, and I understand the fact that Washington, D.C. is a very, very tight area. I've driven through D.C. before, and it blows. But even somebody with a baseline knowledge of physics understands the fact that if you're going to do something like that, you're going to have to get a running start. That guy bumped into the bollards at like 2 miles an hour. It looked like there were some boxes up in the front too, so when they were investigating. Let's look at it. Come on, give me the play button. There you go. Okay, the fire truck is blocking it there. But it did look like there were some boxes in the back when they showed the still. The driver of a rented box truck that collided with a security barrier near the White House on Monday, who told law enforcement that he wanted to seize power of the government and kill the president, was arrested and charged last night. Kill him with what? I understand again that Biden is a frail old man, but literally, kill him with what? He probably got paid to return the U-Haul to D.C. with all the people moving out. The FBI interviewed suspect Sai Varshith Kandula of Chesterfield, Missouri, and told law enforcement that he wanted to seize power, take over the government, and kill the president. According to 3 law enforcement sources tell ABC News that authorities are looking into at a mental health component to the investigation. Either this guy was a plant or there has got to be some serious mental health wrong with this dude. One of the two things is happening here. Because again, he bumped into a security barrier at 2 miles an hour with not weapon 1 in the vehicle. What's the plan here, Junior? Kandula is being held without bond and will appear in federal court on Wednesday. He has not entered a plea. The U-Haul truck crashed at about 10 p.m. on the north side of Lafayette Square. We know that. Kandula allegedly traveled from St. Louis to Dulles, where he rented a U-Haul truck and drove to the White House, law enforcement sources told ABC News. After bumping the bollard, let's be fair about this, Kandula exited the vehicle and began waving a flag with what authorities say appeared to be a swastika on it, and that's when officers from U.S. Park Police detained him. There were no injuries to any Secret Service or White House personnel, Anthony Guglielmi, a spokesperson for the Secret Service, said in a statement. Okay, there's the still right there. No, never mind. I take that back. That was just a trick of the light. What I thought was over here, what I thought was boxes, nope, that is the wall, because I can see where the tie-down rail is. And I matched the tie-down rail that goes along this wall. No, that was an empty truck. The truck was cleared for potential explosives, the law enforcement official said. Nope. Daily Wire has an update on some of the charge off here. Man charged with threatening the president. Just look a little bit over this one. A video from the Citizens Free Press. Let me kill the music here and we'll listen to or watch this one. Again, what's the plan here, Junior? You started from a full stop. Now, to be in fairness to him, it does look like he actually possibly tried to do a brake stand to do it, because he's seen too many Fast and Furious movies. That does seem to be what the case is there. Gulliam later tweeted that a preliminary investigation reveals the driver may have intentionally struck the security barriers. Yeah, that's pretty much obvious from that. And we'll skip the St. Louis one here. I'm sorry, the Associated Press one, but we've got a local one here from St. Louis. Marquette High School grad admired Hitler, aimed to seize power and attack near the White House. Glowy, 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 from Dana Rick and Kim Bell. A Marquette High School graduate intentionally crashed a U-Haul box truck into a security barrier at a park across from the White House to seize power and be put in charge of the nation, even if it meant killing the president with no weapons, according to court records released on Tuesday. Let's see. The Chesterfield teenager told police in an interview his goal was to get the White House, seize power, and be put in charge of the nation. He said he admires Nazis, authoritarian nature, eugenics, and their one world order. He told investigators he looked up to Hitler because he was a strong leader, and he believes Nazis have a great history according to the affidavit. Kandula said he would seize control of the nation, a plan that he'd had for 6 months, and would kill the president if that's what I have to do, and hurt anyone who would stand in my way, according to court documents. With what? I wanted to see, and I put this up here, I didn't pre-read this. The 19-year-old's family lives in a new subdivision near Wild Horse Creek Road in a 2-story brick home on a street named Patchwork Fields, overlooking the private lake and playground. 5 pairs of shoes waited on the family's front porch Tuesday while people inside glanced out windows at 4 TV cameras set up on the sidewalk. They didn't come out. A man who said he was a relative answered the door and said he did not want to talk. The family had not yet hired a lawyer, they said. 2 men in plainclothes carrying file folders and briefcases arrived at the home around 2 p.m., along with 3 other people. One man carried a briefcase stamped FBI Evidence Response Team. They went around to the backyard and entered the home through a sliding glass patio door. The Rockwood School District confirmed Kandula graduated early from Marquette High School. The district said he was on the student council as a sophomore and on the tennis team as a sophomore and junior. He bought a one-way ticket and flew in from St. Louis at 8 p.m. and went directly to rent the U-Haul truck. Yeah, nothing else into this. One of the reasons I wanted to look at this was to see if they were going to drag out fellow students, because apparently he was somewhat popular. I mean, he played tennis, was on student council, so people in this school know this kid. And yet we have radio silence on what he was like before this, because, and again, I'm going to come back out and say this again, he wasn't praising Nazis before this day. He had never had a flag with a swastika on it before this day. I bet you if we play this video, and I don't know, because I haven't looked at this, we'll see fold marks still on this flag. Oh, it's archived, so I can't play the video. That would be my question, though, is are there still fold marks on the flag? Again, this is either somebody who's certifiably mentally incompetent but being on student council. I can't say that. A plant, or the dumbest criminal in history. But I don't buy this, the way that they presented it. Not one little bit. Alright, let's get the live chat back up here. Let's see. Oh, we got a lot of stuff that I missed here. Grant says, why young men of color are joining white supremacist groups? The Daily Beast. Is the future of hate multicultural? The Daily Beast. Not even allegedly. Well, they did invent nuclear power and space travel. One man with a briefcase stamped FBI evidence planting team. Where's our Nashville manifesto? Where's the manifesto? We'll have the Hitler praising manifesto before we get the Nashville manifesto. Oh, how lame. They're dismissing the contempt case against Kim Gardner. That bitch should be in jail for malicious prosecution. Probably. He has a decent amount of facial hair for being in high school. Yeah, lucky prick. I didn't have that much facial hair when I was in high school. I had a mustache, and that was it. Alright, so that is Sai Varsith Kadula. Don't buy it. Don't buy a word of it. If you buy any of this, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me in the chat. But I don't buy it. Alright, we're going to do a bit of presidential politics here. We're going to be switching sides a little bit, though. When I had this, a lot of this is left over from yesterday. And when I had it set up yesterday, I was going to go Democrats, then Republicans. But apparently Ron DeSantis has decided that that wasn't a good pattern anymore. So now we're going to go Republican, Democrat, Republican instead. So, from NBC News to start with. Ron DeSantis will launch his presidential bid with Elon Musk. So, I'm confused by this, by the way. If he is announcing that he's going to announce by the transitive property, does that not mean that he just announced? Let's see what they have to say from Dasha Burns and Matt Dixon. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will announce he is running for president during a discussion with CEO Elon Musk. 3 sources familiar with the plans told NBC News. Musk and DeSantis will host an event on Twitter Spaces, the site's platform for audio chats, on Wednesday at 1800 hours Eastern Time. It will be moderated by David Sachs, a tech entrepreneur who is a Musk confidant and a DeSantis supporter. That same evening, the campaign will release a launch video, and DeSantis will begin visiting several early states after Memorial Day. The relationship could be a significant boost for DeSantis by giving him an introduction to and credibility with Musk's massive following, including his 140 million Twitter followers. But it could prove a burden should DeSantis become distracted by the tycoon's many controversial comments. The launch will closely tie together the billionaire tech mogul with one of the Republican Party's rising stars. Musk has been an admirer of DeSantis, who also regularly chides corporate media. Last year, Musk said that he would support the governor if he were to run for president. The announcement will coincide with a retreat for high-end fundraisers pledged to support DeSantis in Miami. Bundlers will gather at the Four Seasons Hotel from May 24th to 26th, receiving briefings from campaign staff combined with the time to call around to raise money for the campaign. The DeSantis team has been in talks with Musk for at least the last few weeks, according to a source familiar with the discussion. Now, number one, these are all unnamed sources. Basically, all we know right now, and I would hazard a guess to say we don't even know this, is that Musk and DeSantis are palling around. But I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that Ron DeSantis is going to run for president. I don't like it, but I don't like Ron DeSantis. I don't think he's going to win. I don't think he can win. I think he's alienated too many people. And he is trying to run to the Bushite side of the GOP. I'm not going to come out and say that he's a Bush pick right now, but the people that he is trying to gear his campaign towards are the people who would have voted for Bush. The never Trumpers or former Trumpers who only went along with Trump for the fact that he had the R next to his name. That seems to be his target audience with this, and I don't think it's enough to carry him over the finish line. Reading one from the BBC. Risk and reward as Ron DeSantis links arms with Elon Musk. From Anthony Zurcher and James Clayton. Governor Executive Order is expected to launch his 2024 bid for the Republican presidential nomination in a live interview on Musk's Twitter on Wednesday. In doing so, the Florida governor is bypassing the more traditional methods of a kicking off of a campaign, such as an in-person rally, big TV interview, or a slickly produced online video. While he will eventually do all these things, opting for Twitter as his first choice makes notable statement about the kind of campaign he will run and the type of supporter he hopes to prioritize. The event, details of which are still unclear, is all but guaranteed to provide a friendly audience for Mr. DeSantis. Oh, I'm sure there are going to be, and I don't know how Twitter Spaces work, but I'm sure that there are going to be moderators out there who make sure that the anti-DeSantis people don't get in. Speaking at an event on Tuesday, Mr. Musk said he would not endorse any candidate at this time. He said he voted for Biden in 2020 and has described himself as a centrist, although he did say last year that he would support Mr. DeSantis were he to run for president. I know a dirty centrist. A damn dirty centrist, actually. Mr. DeSantis' appearance on Twitter's live broadcast platform known as Spaces will give him the ear of Mr. Musk's huge fan base. Mr. Musk is viewed warmly by most conservatives after he bought Twitter and began using the platform to elevate conservative voices. So, taking the finger off the scale is now known as elevating voices. Well, we'll see. I'm still waiting to see if he actually does it before I weigh in on this, but I think most anybody who watches this program knows how I feel about Ron DeSantis and why I wouldn't vote for him, although why I wouldn't begrudge anybody else for voting for him. I won't do it. Plain and simple. I call him Governor Executive Order for a reason. Although at this point, if the GOP keeps going down the road and the people that they're bringing up, I'll be staying home on primary day and general election day, because they have not brought me forward anybody I can vote for yet. Before this happened, and this happened over the weekend, a video was released by Team Trump that I thought that we should have a listen to here. Partially me thinking that I'm going to come out and say I don't think that the Trump team really has their finger on the pop culture scale, but let me know what you guys think about this.
Run the sales tax had a plan to make you pay more.
With the sales tax here
And the sales tax there.
here a tax,
There a tax everywhere, a sales tax.
In Congress, Ron DeSantis backed a national sales tax, a 23% tax hike on almost everything you buy, from the gas station to the grocery store.
You'll pay more here.
You'll pay more there.
Here you'll pay.
There you'll pay. Everyone will pay more.
90% of families would get a tax hike if DeSantis replaced the current system, making Biden's inflation hit even harder. We can't afford Ron sales tax. Fortunately, we have a better choice. President Trump passed massive tax cuts, lowering tax rates for everyone. President Trump cut taxes, and Ron sales tax, well, as the song goes.
With the sales tax here,
And the sales tax there.
you're a tax.
There are tax everywhere, sales tax.
Make America Great Again, Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Now, I'm generally in favor of a flat tax, a national sales tax. The problem with some of that is number one, a 23% one is way too high. If you've got to take 23% off of everything that everybody buys, at end point, by the way, that's something to pay attention to, and we'll talk just a bit about that in just a moment. But if you have to run almost a quarter of what everybody buys, then you're still spending too much in Washington, and your sales tax proposal is completely insolvent. That's number one. Number two, while I think it will mostly benefit the working classes, which is where this goes against most of my friends on the left who think that any sort of flat tax, anything other than income tax graduated, is just favoring the rich. Although I think the graduated tax is also favoring the rich at this point, so I don't know what it is that would make these people happy. But the problem is you would almost have to have a 1-year tax vacation, which Washington will never go for, before you started to kick in on the sales tax. And I'm talking like a 5% on top of whatever your municipality sales tax is. If this proposal goes true, and I mean, there's been no evidence that there's ever been a proposal for this coming from DeSantis. It was something that he backed while he was in the House of Representatives. But most likely because his caucus leader was the one who was trying to whip him onto the bill to do it. It's not something he proposed. It's not something that he necessarily made his campaign on and his bid on. It was something where the majority whip, or I think it was the minority whip at the time in the House, looked at it and says, "Come on, guys, we gotta get everybody together to go vote on this." And he just signed it. Okay, I'm Ron DeSantis and I vote for this. There's some other, like, I was listening to Styx the other day, and he pointed out the fact that this would, Styx seems to think that this would be like, you get the wheat out of the field and you sell it over to the mill to make flour, and then you pay the tax on it when you sell it to the mill, and then the flour gets paid the tax on, or it pays the bakery pays the tax when they buy the flour from the mill, which is 2 instances of taxes that go on to the cost. And then after the bread is made, then the final consumer, the sandwich shop buys the bread, pays the tax on the bread, and then makes the sandwich, and then you pay the tax. That's not actually going to be the case. Any sort of sales tax like that is going to follow the same pattern as sales tax now, where there will be exemptions for resale. So you're not going to sit back and multiply this 25% every single time you go and step this back up. I mean, that would be asinine. Your stuffing would cost more than your turkey if they did that. Then the people who are behind this know. And yes, the resellers are still going to find another way to go back and get around the sales tax like they do already. But there's absolutely no evidence that this is a part of the major DeSantis agenda. Not to mention that song, like, they tried to stick onto the pentameter, but it didn't stick to the meter of the original song. All right. Again, another one happening before this announcement today. Beware, your life is not valued. NAACP Travel Advisory warns Florida is openly hostile towards African Americans. From Holly Yan, Melissa Alonso, and Diane Gallagher. Another advocacy group is warning people of color about traveling to Florida. 80s Kid says, leftists are dictums. They act like a dick and play the victim. The alerts from groups representing Black and Latino Americans come as the state's Republican governor, Ron DeSantis, is expected to enter the 2024 presidential race with a campaign built on tenets of the conservative agendas that he's fostered in Florida. The NAACP issued a travel advisory for Florida in direct response to DeSantis' aggressive attempts to erase Black history and to restrict diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in Florida schools, the group said Saturday in a statement. Beware! Your life is not valued! NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson told CNN on Monday. He cited a new DeSantis-backed law allowing gun owners to carry a concealed weapon without a permit. So, are you saying that every black person who goes to Florida is going to go try to rob somebody on the streets? Because that's pretty fucking racist. Derek Johnson. As well as education policies that include a ban on teaching about gender identity and sexual orientation through 12th grade. The announcement came days after LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, issued a travel advisory for Florida after DeSantis signed a new immigration law that will go into effect in July, but will not affect anybody who's legal. This is posturing. And by the way, none of the people are actually going to stop going to Florida. None of the people that follow either of these groups are going to stop. The truckers are going to stop for a little while until they realize how much money they're leaving on the table by doing so. But none of these people are actually going to stop going to Florida. That is not going to happen. It's fun to think about, but it's not going to happen. Alright, switching gears here, going back over to the left briefly. From the Daily Wire. And probably the biggest amount of evidence that they're going to throw him under the bus. Hillary Clinton says Biden's age is an issue voters should consider. From Daniel Chayton. Hillary Clinton encouraged voters to contemplate President Biden's age when they head to the ballot box in 2024. His age is an issue, and people have every right to consider it, Clinton said during an event in D.C. over the weekend. Already the oldest person to be president at 80. Biden would be 86 at the end of his second term. He announced in April he is seeking re-election. Biden's tendency to lose his train of thought while speaking in moments caught on camera where he's tripped or fallen over has spurred concerns about his fitness to serve. Financial Times editor Edward Luce, who was interviewing 75-year-old Clinton, brought up one heart-stopping example when Biden stumbled down a set of stairs at the G7 summit in Japan. It's a concern for anyone, Clinton replied. We've had presidents who have fallen before who were a lot younger, and people didn't go into heart palpitations. While some of Biden's allies have defended him from age anxiety, Biden said last month that his age does not register with him. Well, neither do the names of people around him. I respect them taking a hard look at it, man. I'd take a hard look at it as well. I took a hard look at it before I decided to run. By it, we're talking about that little girl up in the front row, right? No, I'm not supposed to be taking a hard look at that? Never mind. And I feel good. I feel excited about the prospects, man. Biden's age has become an attack line among candidates who seek to challenge him in 24. Vivek Ramaswamy called Biden's re-election campaign a case of elder abuse, while his election campaign was a case of elder abuse. Every day he is in this office is a case of elder abuse. Jason Miller, an advisor to former President Trump, reacted to Clinton's comments with a quip, Sounds like Crooked is warming up in the bullpen, he tweeted, alluding to one of Trump's mocking nicknames for Clinton. So, he might not make it down to the end of the race before his own party throws him under the bus. Which, by the way, would be hilarious. And if that were to happen here, from the LA Times column, what if Biden weren't running? Democrats have a bench that's deeper than you think. Now, they all blow, but it's deeper than you think. From Jackie Calmes. The focus is fixed on Republicans when it comes to 24. Tim Scott of South Carolina and Ron DeSantis reportedly will announce their bids for the party's nomination next week, which is this week, making it a six-pack of competitors so far against the damaged but still dominant Donald Trump. By contrast, there's relative calm on the Democrat side, where President Brandon has no major rivals for re-election. You know, except for Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. Yet the placidity belies simmering anxiety nearly a month after the president released a 3-minute video confirming he's seeking a second term. He hasn't quieted doubts about his candidacy among party leaders and voters. If anything, the worries are mounting, flowing from his consistently low poll ratings and the fact of his advanced age. Yeah, again, this is the second article in a row that's mentioned his advanced age, and I didn't even think to put this one on here because of that line. They're throwing him under the bus. Media surveys just before and after Biden's announcement for NBC News and for the Washington Post and ABC News, respectively, showed that more Democrats and Democrat-leaning voters opposed his running again than favored it. Democrat operatives still speculate in private conversations about younger, more vibrant alternatives and what-if scenarios. Biden's less than apparent heir, Vice President Harris, who got 1% in the polls, I think it might be under the Hearst. Oh, Hearst. I was going to say, what does a shifter have to do in any of this? Kamala Harris is excluded from the handicapping because she's even less popular in polls than he is. Let's take a moment to consider some of the up-and-coming Democrats who are perhaps missing their moment to get Biden's quest for 4 more years. Top among the up-and-comers are 2 new governors, Wes Moore and Josh Shapiro, who demolished Trump-backed Republicans in November. On the second case, honk honk. Moore, an Army vet of Afghanistan and former Rhodes Scholar, author, and investment banker, is the first black governor of Maryland. Shapiro, former Pennsylvania 8. You won against a Republican in Maryland with DC being adjacent, and you want to brag about that as a victory? Sit the fuck down. Shapiro, former Pennsylvania AG, won his swing state on the strength of his reputation as a consensus builder. No, he won his swing state on the fact that they tried to put Mehmet Oz on the ballot, who was a extraordinarily weak candidate. And people went in to vote in droves for Fetterman and just looked and said, oh, look at all these other boxes on the Democrat side. No, Josh Shapiro is not going to be the president. Their time could well come, but among these Democrats, seasoned enough for now, the presidential arena are more experienced governors, including Gretchen Whitmer, who will, right before she gets into the field, if she gets into the field, right before any major primary, will stage another kidnapping attempt. She's got the FBI on her side. Gretchen Whitmer will not be president. North Carolina's Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper is hanging out by the skin of his teeth. He's not going to be president either. Both of whom impressively won re-election in their battleground states and have since gained national attention for their fights for abortion rights in their states. J.B. Pritzker. J.B. Pritzker will never be president just because of that B word right there. I can't believe he's a governor. given the fact that his family owns the Hyatt chain. No, J.B. Pritzker is never going to be president. The progressives will not have him. And Phil Murphy of New Jersey. Phil Murphy is actually a maybe. He's one that I could say, I don't think that he would do it this term, but he actually could pull it off. A former Goldman Sachs executive and ambassador to Germany similarly have raised their profiles. Andy Beshear, a popular Democrat governor in a very, very red state who will not be president. This may be his last term as governor. And Gavin Newsom, who won't run against Biden, and in fact threw his endorsement behind him. I don't think Gavin Newsom can do it. In spite of his endorsement, Gavin Newsom has troubles in his home state, the bluest of the blue. And he is way too far out to the left field. And everybody knows, that's the thing too, is like, this is age of internet where people all know what Gavin Newsom did in California already. I don't think Gavin Newsom could win Illinois right now in a presidential race. And that's saying something. Amy Klobuchar, who can't speak a sentence without shaking like a dog shit in Pete's Pits, will not be president. Michael Bennett, maybe. Cory Booker of New Jersey. I think Cory Booker will take a run for it again, and I think he will fail. I don't think he's got it in him. I think he is too mired in number one controversy, and I think he's too astroturf to be real. And Pete Buttigieg, who also will not be president because, well, he lost everything on East Palestine. No matter who runs against Pete Buttigieg, that's all they have to say is East Palestine. Yes, Gavin was recalled. That's correct. So, what the LA Times is saying is a deep, deep bench are two people who have a shot and one person who could probably run for it and lose again. Yeah, show me the shot that you show here, because I don't see it. From the Blaze. So this is before we move back over on into the right side of things. I want to point this out because this is a psyop. And the reason that I know this is a psyop and they're doing this to garner attention off this is because they've done this once before. There's just no excuse. Lauren Boebert blasts John Fetterwoman's uber casual attire from Alex Nitzberg. Don't fall into this trap. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. Just briefly here, Lauren Boebert of Colorado criticized Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania for the extremely casual attire he opted to wear on Thursday. While other senators at a Thursday press conference sported suits and ties, Fetterman, clad in a hoodie, shorts, and sneakers, offered a jarring visual contrast. Fetterman is known for wearing hoodies, but Boebert took issue with Senator's appearance because she took the bait. She did exactly what she was supposed to do for this. John Fetterman redefined Casual Friday on a Thursday morning. It's truly unbecoming for someone to show up like that to any job, let alone a job that only 100 people are elected to. There's no excuse for it, she declared in a tweet. Now, I'm not going to go any further into this, but the reason that I say that this is basically a psyop to try to get more attention onto what Fetterman was wearing comes to us from two of our highest paid Gen Zers out there. Paid just for coming out and tweeting what the DNC tells them to, and then paid through a shell corporation. So this is first Harry Sisson. Biden's biggest scandal, he fell off a bike. Obama's biggest scandal, he wore a tan suit. You know, as if Lois Lerner's IRS didn't happen, as if Afghanistan withdrawal didn't happen, as if COVID emergency, the border crisis, the Hunter laptop, the Ukrainian war, as if none of that actually happened. Crimea, that comes to mind. Fast and Furious. But they're going to try to do this again. They're going to come back out and say and they're not going to focus on a lot of what Biden did for this one because they're trying to keep the spotlight off of him. But coming up in 24 and probably in 26 and beyond, we're going to hear that the biggest scandal that Democrats had during Biden's years was Fetterman wearing a sweatshirt to Congress. You mark my words, that's what they're going to say. I promise you. And his butt lover, Chris Mowry, says the same thing. One reason I'm voting Democrats is because our most talk about scandal in the last 10 years was a tan suit. No, that's the scandal that you talk about. The rest of us talk about Fast and Furious and the IRS scandal. So they're gonna try to pull this one. And they're going to hope that nobody remembers. And by the way, he's not even trying to hide the fact that he's paid by pallet management. This one either. $250,000 worth too. Alright, shifting back over to the right side of the aisle. We got one here from our friends over at NPR. Republican Senator Tim Scott is officially running for president. And this is from Don Gonia. And remember, NPR can't tell you how evil and white supremacist Tim Scott is with just their measly 10% government funding. So hit that donate button because commercial revenue is down. And they need our money, comrade, to tell you that this man pictured down here is a white supremacist. And he must be a white supremacist. Because he runs for the Republican Party, and he is exactly like Trump in every way. So, hit that donate button because NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott announced his run for the Republican nomination on Monday in North Charleston. The senator, who's represented South Carolina in the Senate since 2013, portrays himself as a true conservative with a positive story to tell. We need a president who persuades not just our friends and our base, he told supporters in his hometown. We have to have a compassion for people who don't agree with us. We have to believe that our ideas are so strong and so powerful and so persuasive that we can actually take it to the highest points in the world and be successful. But we also have to be able to take it all the way down to the places today are hopeless and prove that who we are works for all Americans. As for his own upbringing, being raised by a single mother, Scott says they found strength in faith and family and a determination to succeed, all things that he accused Democrats of working to destroy. From the time the sun goes down until the sun comes up, Joe Biden and the radical left are attacking every single rung of the ladder that helped me climb, and that's why I'm announcing today I'm running for the presidency, he said. I talked a bit about this on Friday when he basically did the same thing that DeSantis did. I'm going to announce that I'm going to announce. And I really like what Tim Scott has for ideas, but the fact that he had to go through exploratory committee and do it tells me that he doesn't have the balls to do the job and to deal in foreign policy. And he might be, even with the focus group thing, he might be fantastic on domestic policy because of that. But the fact that I can't trust him to go and do foreign policy tells me all that I need to know about him from somebody, again, who I actually, under almost any circumstance, says, yeah, this is somebody who I could get behind. This is somebody I could vote for. National Propaganda Radio says Grant. But he is officially in. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Honestly, I don't. I really fear that this is going to wind up being a also ran. But CNN, in true CNN fashion, had to fact check everything that he had to say. So, facts first! Fact check Tim Scott's presidential announcement speech from Katie Grease. We're going to go over this for just a bit. The workforce, Scott says, the share of working age men choosing to work is the lowest it's ever been. Fact first, the rate of men participating in the labor force has been generally on the decline for the last 75 years. But it's recently bounced back from 2020 pandemic-era lows. The labor force participation rate in men older than 16 was 68.1% in April 2023. According to data from the BLS, which is up slightly from its low point in 2020, when the rate was 66.1. Yeah, but we're not in the 70 and 80 percentile. And even coming up into the 90 percentile, like we were under Trump and Reagan especially. That's still a historic low at 68.1. If we look instead at the unemployment rate of men, which just tells us about the men who stopped getting benefits from the government because they ran out. It's near a record low, meaning employment is high. No, that's not what that means. 3.6% of men were unemployed in the first quarter of 2023. No, 3.6% of men were getting unemployment benefits in the first quarter of 2023. In 2020, that number spiked to 12% when men were unemployed. It also hovered around 11% in the fourth quarters of 1982 and 2009. Student loan debt relief. Scott claimed Biden wants to make waitresses and mechanics pay for the student loans of borrowers and doctors making six figures. Facts first. It's possible that borrowers who went on to become doctors and lawyers will have some of their student loans forgiven under the Biden plan. But an August 2022 analysis of the plan found that about 75% of the benefit of the relief plan will go to households making $88,000 or less per year. Which is still more than what the waitresses and mechanics, well, not the mechanics, but that's still more than what the waitresses are making. Immigration. Scott, while discussing the need to secure America's border, says, if you don't control your back door, it's not your house. And if our southern border is unsafe and insecure, it's not our country. Hundreds of people on our terrorist watch list are crossing our border. Facts first! Scott is correct that U.S. Customs and Border Protection encountered hundreds of people trying to enter the U.S. in fiscal year 2022 who were in the terrorist screening data set. But most of those encounters occurred at land border ports of entry on the northern border of the U.S., not the southern border, as Scott applied when he said it's unsafe and insecure. Yeah, you encountered hundreds, that's right. How many didn't you encounter? The northern border is, for the most part, secure. There are some problems here and there, but for the most part, that's pretty secure. A few people making an attempt, but for the most part, fairly secure. The southern border, and again, if you're catching hundreds of people, how many are you not catching? So that's their fact check on his speech. Daily Wire, probably in a bit of desperation here, WAPO reporter asked Tim Scott if he is still a virgin. From Virginia Cruta. Let me refresh this. So we've got a tweet here for that. Tim Scott formally announced his bid for the 2024 nomination. We know that already. Washington Post reporter Ben Terrace chose that moment to reflect on asking the unmarried senator whether he's a virgin. Terrace used the moment in part to sell his upcoming book, The Big Break, The Gamblers, Party Animals, and True Believers, to win in Washington while America loses its mind, and shared a brief anecdote about Scott on Twitter. Tim Scott will be the first presidential candidate I've ever asked about the status of his virginity. Initial answer, I'm not talking about my sex life with Ben Terrace. Then he stood up and said, I have to go potty, Terrace tweeted. It wasn't a completely random question. No, it was an attack question, and that's none of the American people's business. But hey, you can read my book, The Big Break. What a piece of shit. And I've got one last one on the presidential race here, and then we'll move on to talk about the debt ceiling. And I think that's going to be all we're going to get a chance to get to. I know that we've got the explosive chemicals on deck and some more Ukraine news. But I think we're just going to get through the debt ceiling stuff and we'll be done for the night. Which is good, given the fact that we took yesterday off inadvertently. I thought for sure that we'd be a lot further behind the 8 ball than we are. This is from WAVY 10 out of West Virginia. I'm sorry, this is regular Virginia, not West Virginia. Social media video from Governor Glenn Youngkin stirs up presidential bid speculation. We've got the video here, which we'll watch. On Thursday morning, Governor Youngkin suddenly dropped a video on his personal Twitter account that reignited speculation that he might soon run for president. The video features videos of Youngkin and various American landmarks, while Youngkin's voice plays in the background saying things like, "The stakes are high, and the consequences couldn't be greater, and it's our turn. A time to choose life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," while repeatedly emphasizing the importance of a new era of American values. Alright, let's watch.
It's pretty overwhelming to contemplate the future of America. It's such an honor to be here with proud Americans who carry on President Reagan's cherished legacy. He brought peace by projecting strength at a time when it's easy for us to lose faith, to worry that we are indeed that one generation when freedom becomes extinct. There are lights shining. We can usher in a new era of American values. President Ronald Reagan changed lives, and now it's our turn. A time to choose life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness over oppression and dictatorial rule. The stakes are high, and the consequences couldn't be greater.
Is he going to get in? I actually don't think so. He might. But I don't think that he necessarily has the wherewithal to do so. And the reason I say this is Youngkin himself walked in on a very, very easy platform. The platform of Ralph Northam ran way too far to the draconian on the abortion question. And all that Youngkin had to do for Virginia was come out and say, okay, well, Terry McAuliffe is nothing but a proxy for what Ralph Northam just had to do. So, do you want babies to be killed after birth? In mostly rural Virginia, with only the D.C. Metro voted for McAuliffe? No. And they got caught trying way too hard to get him out of office, too. With, again, that set of tiki torch holding MAGA hat wearers who just happened to be recognized through photo recognition as college Democrats and McCauley staffers. But I don't think he's going to get in, and I think he knows better. I don't think he's got the wherewithal, and I think that he's doing just fine as far as Virginia's governor goes. But if I'm wrong, I'll come out and say I was wrong. I have no problem doing that. From the Daily Wire, moving on, talking about the debt ceiling. McCarthy tells House Republicans he is nowhere near debt ceiling deal with Biden. From Ben Ziesloft. Kevin McCarthy told lawmakers on Tuesday that Republican leaders are nowhere near a deal with the White House on the debt ceiling. A revelation that comes less than 2 weeks before the nation is expected to default on its obligations. No, less than 2 weeks is like in 1 week. It's been 1 week. That kind of week. The debt ceiling, a statute established by Congress that prevents the government from spending beyond a predetermined national debt limit of $31.4 trillion, exceeded the threshold earlier this year. Yeah, we know the details on this one. McCarthy asked fellow Republicans in a closed-door meeting to hang with me on the debt limit, since he and Biden are nowhere near a deal yet, with respect to spending reforms, according to comments obtained by Punchbowl News founder Jake Sherman. Anonymous source, of course. I told the president 3 things: no clean debt limit, no raising taxes, spend less money, McCarthy said in the meeting, according to Sherman. The lawmaker showed the colleagues a video with a chronology of various Democrats refusing to negotiate on the debt limit. They made a mistake not to negotiate. Let's stay strong together. McCarthy has indeed noted on multiple occasions that Biden declined to continue discussions about the debt ceiling, which were launched in early February, months before the possible deadline. A default would likely induce a recession as the federal government, a major borrower of funds that investors around the world consider to be reliable, neglects to repay obligations. What would be interesting about that is the fact that now, one of the things that I've always said, single-payer healthcare, or even government-provided healthcare, they can go back and charge. The same thing with the student debt crisis. When we say that these costs are going to go up, it's because when the government's going to pay the bills, they supposedly always pay their bills. Well, that whole idea is thrown into turmoil right now, which probably has a lot of single-payer fanatics and student loan, free student college fanatics out there shaking in their shit. Because they can't come back and run on the same idea of, oh, well, we always pay our bills. The government will always pay. Well, we've got evidence that they may not be willing to. The comments come a day after another meeting with Biden on possible mechanisms to amend the debt ceiling. The commander-in-chief had characterized the discussions as productive and affirmed that the only way to move forward is in good faith towards a bipartisan agreement in a statement from the White House. McCarthy repeated in a press release, however, that Biden wasted months ignoring the crisis and risked bumbling into the first default in American history. And yet they still have a large amount of propaganda ready to go blame Republicans for this. I addressed some of that on Twitter the other day. What did I say? Let me get it up here, because I do think this is important. Yeah, let's get this up here. A short thread that got almost no traction. So this is what I mean when they say they're already preparing to make this a Republican's fault. The debt ceiling news has nothing to do with Trump tax cuts. You've been lied to. The current debt ceiling was incepted fully taking into account the tax cuts, COVID relief, all 3 times, yes, even Biden's. Because, by the way, it was the current number that they're running at right now, the $31.4 trillion, was done in July of 2021. 4 months after Stimulus 3. So yeah, Stimulus 3 was taken into account with it already. And all borrowing that was incurred under the debt ceiling suspension, which I told them not to do when they did it. Since July of 2021, we've had 2 major spending bills equaling trillions, another omnibus, time to cut the incoming House majority out until next fiscal year. So that's where your debt ceiling is coming from, and the fact that we're going to go past it. And I actually mistakenly thought, because I thought that they had reinstated the debt ceiling under Trump still. I was wrong about that. It was done in July 2021. The CBO article that I linked with the tweet points that out. But since then, we've had an infrastructure package, the Inflation Production Act, and then also omnibus 2022 to go on until October of this year to make sure that the incoming House majority did not have any say in the spending until October. So, and by the way, this is McCarthy saying, yes, no, I want to say in the spending. Something that he should be saying, by the way. But Biden is not taking this lying down from Fox News. Biden issues terse statement after McCarthy debt ceiling talks. Avoid a catastrophe. From Brandon Gillespie. President Biden issued a terse 3-sentence statement late Monday evening following the conclusion of his talks with Kevin McCarthy on how to raise the debt ceiling, which failed to yield a final agreement, but which both sides say was productive. Hey man, I just concluded a productive meeting with the guy from California about the need to prevent a default and avoid a catastrophe for our economy, man. We reiterated once again that the default is off the table, and the only way to move forward is in good faith towards bipartisan agreement, Biden said in a statement. Well, while there is a disagreement, the Speaker and I and his lead negotiators, the guy that works with the California guy and Congressman Graves, and our staffs will continue to discuss the path forward, man. The White House released Biden's statement after McCarthy. Well, if the White House released Biden's statement after McCarthy briefed reporters, then that was not Biden's statement. It was the staffer that's pulling Biden's strings statement. McCarthy also told reporters that the Monday evening meeting was productive, even though there was no progress yet. He said staff will continue to meet and be expected to be in touch with Biden every day. There are just 10 days left before the government is expected to have to borrow more money in order to pay its current obligations. Politico also pointing out Biden ratchets up pressure as the debt ceiling fight strains his presidency. Well, Biden ratchets up pressure on stairs as he tries to climb them. And fails. From Jonathan Lemire. The nation stands on the precipice of an unprecedented financial calamity that's so unprecedented it's happened 4 times before in our history. Testing whether the president's theory of governance can continue to work. President Brandon has prioritized deal-making through much of the debt ceiling talks, laboring to work across the aisle, even at the risk of alienating the liberal wing of his own party. But with talk taking a turn for the worse this weekend, he and his team are now being forced to tinker with their approach, dialing up criticism in hopes that the specter of a default and public blame for it will move GOP negotiators. On Sunday, Biden called on Republicans to move from their extreme positions because much of what they proposed is simply, quite frankly, unacceptable. Hey, man, there's no bipartisan deal to be made solely on their partisan terms, man. They have to move as well, he said during a news conference that closed his visit to Japan for the G7 summit. Which is fine, they're willing to do that, I'm guessing. It was you who came right up and said, hey, no deal, I'm not negotiating, just give me everything I want. And unfortunately, Joe, you've blinked. Biden's reluctance to play hardball up to this moment, are you kidding me? Has been driven by twin political bets that he would come off as a steady hand in stark contrast to the extremes of the Republican Party. What a crock of shit. Biden came out in the beginning, in February, and said, no negotiation, just give me what I want. This is a bunch of bullshit. And that voters will tune out the Beltway noise, rewarding the president for the job he's done should the crisis pass. Biden and his team have been buoyed by their belief that a consensus-building approach, though perpetually doubted, worked for them before, including with the passage of an infrastructure package and the far-reaching legislation that became the Inflation Reduction Act. But the debt ceiling standoff has so far proven stubbornly different, with Republicans showing a surprisingly united front, and the president risking taking the brunt of the blame if the nation defaults for the first time in its history. For the 5th time. By Sunday, it was clear Biden had grown wary of the state of negotiations. I'm not going to agree to a deal that protects the wealthy, tax cheats, and crypto traders while putting food assistance at risk for nearly 1 million Americans, he said at one point, going back to his usual lines and not giving anything of substance. I think there are some MAGA Republicans in the House who know the damage it would do to the economy, and because I'm president and the president is responsible for everything, Biden would take the blame and then just go back and blame everybody else. Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that part? What do you mean? Oh, they're not supposed to know that I'm just going to blame everyone else? For a few days last week, it appeared Biden's original playbook would work again. The president had shrunk the room of negotiators and enlisted a trio of trusted aides, all notably fellow believers in the notion that the public rewards bipartisan deals. For talks with the White House, Speaker McCarthy's staff, the White House had privately hoped the president would be able to return to D.C. on Sunday after cutting a short trip to Asia, a decision he was loath to make to shepherd the final stages of negotiations. But the weekend brought real wrinkles. Republicans rejected the Democrats' latest offer and said talks would cease until Biden returned. Fights loomed over the length of caps on discretionary spending, potential slashes to military spending, and for how to raise the debt ceiling. The White House's tenor began to change in subtle ways, having been unwilling to comment on the negotiations lest they get accused of poisoning the well. Top West Wing communications officials began publicly aiming criticisms at Republicans for entertaining a default with a barrage of attacks on Saturday, which, again, Jessica Green pointed this out earlier on Twitter and said, yeah, go keep telling your political enemies they're idiots and see if they'll come back and talk to you. I think she was talking about people on Twitter in general, but, I mean, that's an important point that we noted during the Trump town hall as well, where Caitlin Collins wanted Trump to come back. Well, she knew that he wasn't going to, but she wanted to catch Trump saying that Putin wasn't a war criminal because, again, it's nearly impossible to get somebody to a negotiating table when all you've done was ramp up propaganda against that person. Why would McCarthy ever come to the table when all Biden's done is called him a terrorist and a person who's trying to default on the debt? That is an important part of strategy. And it's something that Biden will never understand. Mostly because he's at the very, very end of his life and can't absorb any more information. And some of the threats coming off of this, I'm guessing that a couple of these people, given who they are actually already preparing to grease the palms of agitators. Let's see if we can diplomatically say these words. Democrat lawmaker predicts backlash in the streets if White House agrees to spending cut, from Ben Ziesloft. Pramila Jayapal and Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez spoke against President Biden compromising with Republicans on spending caps and a debt ceiling increase, contending that the move would cause backlash among lawmakers and the broader public, which again means that they're probably already ordering the bricks. Jayapal said in an interview with CNN outside the Capitol building that an agreement which involves spending caps would undo the policy successes which Biden secured during his admin. That's the point. I think there would be a huge backlash from our entire House Democratic caucus. Yeah, but you're in the minority, so boo-hoo, nobody cares. if you want there to not be any talks about this and just get your way, win a majority. I know you certainly tried, honk honk. Certainly progressives, but also in the streets, she told the outlet. It's important that we don't take steps back from this very strong agenda that the president himself shepherded and led over the past 2 years. That's a call to action, by the way, just so you know. That's against Twitter, TOS, and that's incitement. Chavez likewise affirmed that a deal which involves spending reforms or increased work requirements for federal welfare should be unacceptable. That's going to be a problem, okay, papi? We do not legislate through the debt ceiling for this very reason, okay? Again, if you wanted to be in the majority and legislate through this, win a majority. The comments from the lawmakers come a day after Biden met with McCarthy. I told the president 3 things: no clean debt limit, no raising taxes, spend less money. They made a mistake not to negotiate. Let's stay strong together. Yeah, that's a call to action right there. I'm gonna put this in the Discord right now. I'm gonna ask everyone. Well, we're gonna do this in topic chat. On-air production. Let's see if we can get a discussion going on that. Alright, just a couple more here. And then we will head out. Well, I guess we have a few more. Maybe we won't get through all this. Alright, from the Hill, McCarthy endgame on debt ceiling begins to come into focus. From Mike Lillis. Endgame. Spend less. The prevailing account, says Speaker McCarthy, is walking a tightrope over Shark Tank in the debt ceiling talks, sliding precariously between a federal default on one side and the loss of his speakership on the other. The prevailing account might have it all wrong. Well, no, the prevailing account does have it all wrong. Well, let me rephrase that. The prevailing account, in quotes. The prevailing account that they're trying to say is something that the mainstream media made up to try to make this seem like McCarthy is fighting for his own political career, in spite of the fact that no Republicans have called for him to lose his speakership, should he fold on this. They might after the fact, but going into it, nobody's talked about this. Partially, again, because Republicans understand strategy. They're not going to come out and say, do this or else, but, I mean, after the fact, they might sit back and say, hey, man, what the hell was up with this? What did you do? Why would you do this to us? Conservatives say they're not eyeing an effort to strip McCarthy of his gavel, even if they oppose the eventual compromise with Biden. Nobody's talking about that, said Bob Good of Virginia. We support our speaker. We want him to be successful because the country needs him to be successful. Literally nobody except the press is talking about removing McCarthy right now, said Matt Gaetz. The mechanics of getting where we are, getting there, we're very tuned with, Patrick McHenry, one of the Republicans leading the talks with the White House, said. Yeah, no, they're not trying to come back out here and strip him of his speakership. That's brinksmanship, and that's propaganda coming from the mainstream media. Yellen, with a little bit of fear porn here. Yellen says low odds of U.S. paying all bills past mid-June without debt ceiling deal. From Daniel Shayton. Janet Yellen views mid-June as the likely time period when the U.S. can no longer pay its obligations without a debt ceiling deal. During a Sunday appearance on NBC News, Yellen gave her most specific prediction to date, as talks between the White House and Congress appear to hit a snag. What is the likelihood that we can get to the June... Oh, that's Chuck Todd. That's F. Chuck Todd. We don't have video of the interview, unfortunately. Hey, what is the likelihood we can get to the June 15th tax receipts to avoid breaching the debt ceiling? Can you put a percentage on it? Is it 20%? 40? Something like that? Asked Meet the Depressed moderator, F. Chuck Todd. Well, there's always uncertainty about tax receipts and spending. And so, it's hard to absolutely be certain about this. But my assessment is the odds of reaching June 15th while being able to pay all of our bills is quite low. So again, that's another move of the X date, because the X date is supposed to be in 7 calendar days. 4 working days, by the way. But Republicans are questioning this, which they maybe should. From CNBC, Republicans question June 1st debt ceiling deadline as talks zero in on potential trade-offs. From Christina Wilkie. A significant group of House Republicans raised questions Tuesday about whether the Treasury Department's June 1st deadline to avoid a potential U.S. debt default was accurate. We'd like to see more transparency in how they come to that date, Steve Scalise said Tuesday at a news conference. Scalise also said he believed the Treasury Secretary's latest comments about Monday implied that it's June 1st or later, giving some openness to the idea June 1st might not be the so-called X date. We haven't really been able to see a lot of transparency, but it looks like they're hedging now, opening the door to move that date back, said Scalise. A Treasury spokesperson declined to comment. I wouldn't mind seeing at least some math that shows why it's June 1st instead of just saying, it's June 1st, give us a debt ceiling deal. When really is the X date? It's hard to say with an emoji shrug, which is completely professional in Politico. From Kiera Frazier. President Biden and House Speaker McCarthy are facing an upcoming deadline known as the X date, as the two continue their standoff on whether to increase the federal debt ceiling. The X date, the day the U.S. government says it can no longer fulfill all its financial obligations, is rapidly approaching. Yellen says that it could be coming up here in the next few days. Others say the X date could occur anywhere from June to early August. Yellen predicts June 1st. Moody's predicts avoiding default, and they're saying June 15th. Goldman Sachs says June 8th or June 9th. Bipartisan Policy Center says early June to August. So yeah, they're just kind of casting a wide net out there and saying, yeah, well, no matter what, we're going to be right. That's DC politics for you. And with that, I think we're going to hold off on the rest of this. Yeah, we're going to keep these last 3 because I know we're going to talk about debt ceiling tomorrow too, even if there's a deal. So we'll hold off on the rest of this for now for the rest of the day. We'll pick up where we left off. Well, we'll do the new news first, and then we'll pick up where we left off tomorrow. But before we do that, the last thing that we do on a Tuesday is we look at the rules of acquisition. So let's go ahead and have a look at what our rule of acquisition is for the week. Scroll down, let's see what we got. I know we're hammering through there. So I know that Mr. Scott will say that the 193rd is non-canon, but this also is There are two 193rd. One is from a DS9 novel and one is from Star Trek Online. And we're going to, because we're using memory beta, we are going to use Star Trek Online as a source. So the Star Trek Online version of the 193rd is Trouble Comes in Threes. It's an old rule. It's happened with finance, it's happened with lifestyle, it's happened with a lot of things for a lot of people where things tend to come in threes. I mean, this isn't the first time I've heard something like this. This is an old wives' tale. You get something bad, your old lady leaves you, and then you lose your job, and then you wind up living in your car. Trouble comes in threes. You lose a brake on your car, then a relative takes a turn for the worse, health-wise, and then your dog runs away. It comes in threes. And it does seem to happen to come in threes, and I don't know if it's psychological, and we just move and will things to happen in the third point, or if it is just the fact, like, you know, if you do have a car trouble someday, then you're way too anxious and you don't do your work, your performance declines, and you get that talking to and that pink slip. It may very well be psychological, but it does tend to happen that way. Trouble does come in threes. I hope that my ad heads don't have troubles coming in threes, because I hope that my ad heads don't have troubles at all. I hope that they live their best lives and everything works great for them, but nobody can be happy all the time either, so we do have that avenue of things to go with as well. And I do hope that when you do have things go wrong, you've got the strength and the wherewithal to weather them and come out better on the other side, so you don't have to wind up in threes. And with that, next week we'll do the beta canon version of the 193rd. But that's for next week. For now, let's head out of here for the day. I have no idea what the song is, but it's a banger. I like it. Unfortunately, oh, it's from somewhere in Final Fantasy. Descendant of Shinobi. From Black Materia, the instrumentals. Guys, do make sure you go give Game Chops Video Game Study Lounge a listen. It is one of my favorite tracks for backing. And it's really good to have in the background, like when you're cleaning and stuff too. Of course, you should have Contemporary on in the background, or one of the other news programs that I mentioned at the top of the show. But if you just want to listen to some music and not have your mind completely occupied about what you're listening to, yeah, maybe you can go listen to Black Materia, or a host of other things that are on Video Game Study Lounge. It's a great one, especially if you love video games like I do. You can go through and you probably recognize a lot of the songs. But with that, let's head out of here for the day. Where's the outro music? Oh, that's right, I restarted. So the outro music's not on the bar. Let's fix that. Whew, well, we are back. We had to miss a show because of equipment failure, but that didn't keep us down for long, and we had a lot to go over here, and we got a lot of it done today, too. So, thank you everybody who came by, chatted, and hung out in the live chat. Hope that all of you get a chance to come back in and weigh on what's happening in the Discord with the new topic chat, talking about whether or not this is a call to action or not. I think it's a call to action. I think they're already buying the bricks because they want to see the chaos, and they want to blame it on Republicans for negotiating and forcing the negotiations, legislating on the debt ceiling. But we'll see what happens. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what's going to happen. And I know when they've talked about big riots, we don't get them. But we'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. It's one of my favorite times of the day, and I was so bummed that we missed it yesterday. So come back and join me. We'll do some more chat. We'll talk about something I'm thankful for tomorrow night, and a host of other news. We will see what happens in the next 22 hours. And with that, have a great night. Take care. Hug your family. Get some food. Have a great rest. And we will see you here next time. And stick around if you're over on Twitch as we go and raid. Who are we going to go raid tonight? We're going to go raid. Let's go to Jungle Tees. Let's go that one. No, let's go to Celestia. Celestia's playing Stardew Valley. We'll go to that one here. But yeah, come back in and join us here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until tomorrow, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.